you're not saying is desperation. So there was a desperation that we were feeling, and for whatever reason, that desperation ended up tying back to those students in that back corner desk. And there was all other, because this is the part I always tried to talk about. My wife's like, nobody, but this is how it worked in my mind. There were this big metaphor of like new life and chicken, like eggs, and there was this whole thing that was brewing because the book, but it really focuses on 4 characters. You have a plant manager at this chicken processing plant, and it's not Tyson, it's Detmer Foods. Not Tyson at all. This is a work of fiction, This is a work of, so his name is Luke Jackson, and then his wife is Mimi Jackson, and they have a 6-month-old. And then you have Gabriela Menchaca and Edwin Saucedo, who are both workers on the line plant. And so I guess that's a long way to tell you and the book is really just about those 4 characters and how they get entangled. I always try not to give away like the spoiler of like the inciting event, but if you've ever seen Raising Arizona, I had somebody say this, they were like, this could be Raising Arkansas. I thought, yeah, that'd be a good way to put it.
Okay, so my question I had before, now it works better, is you're constantly just thinking like a writer then. So if you're writing all these books before you were even published, in my mind, you are writing not for being published, but for something in you just has to write this stuff down. So has anything changed with the way you write now that you've become a successful author? Do you think about things differently, or do you just kind of have this like innate, like, I know I need to write this? How has it changed at all for you, the way you write, based on the fact that you're now a pretty successful published author?
Yeah, I think so. But I try really hard to like not listen to it. So yes, there are a lot of different voices in my head now. And there are a lot of different voices out there. People who read my books and who feel the urge to write to me and tell me things, about my books. But I had one of the best questions that I've ever gotten at one of these things. You start off on a book tour and you get this nice kind of grace period where nobody's really read your book. You're out, you're talking about it and nobody's read it. And then you enter a stage where you go things and people have now read it. It's been out a week or more and people are like, yeah. And so taking on these topics that were a challenge and a stretch for me, which I think is important. I think to go back to your question about, I think it is important to keep challenging and keep stretching. And when a story comes to you, because ideas come all the time. Like I have this old basement office that I just write the ideas like on the wall, and it's filled with ideas. But the best ideas are the ones you can't quit thinking about, are the ones that just kind of eat at you, and they kind of claw their way to the top of that board, So the question that really hit me home was I had a lady ask me, she said, well, what did you learn, Eli, from writing this book? What did you learn from writing this book? And I thought it was the best question in the world because, I was trying really hard to get into the heads of those students that I had. That's who these characters, Gabriela and Edwin, are based on. And I learned a lot about trying to see what would that look like. What would that feel like? But what I also really learned was it's one thing to grieve with someone like my wife, like how we both grieved the loss. But it was another thing to try and write this, and I would give it to her 50 pages at a time. And so what I told, I think reading in general is like the best kind of empathy builder in the world. So that's why reading is special and important and why we need it more than anything in the world right now in this current moment in our country, is because a book lets you get inside someone's head. Like, it's kind of magic. You've got these little black squiggle lines on a white paper, and you can crawl inside someone's head and live there for 10 hours, different than you can, like, just watching images on a screen. And so you get to, that builds empathy. You're reading the thoughts of a character who might not be where you're from, who might not look like you, but to write that character, like to dream that character up and try and make them breathe and be a real person. I mean, well, my wife and I joke, we were like, this book was the best therapy that, like, we never had to pay for, you know, because of the way you learn that. So I say all that to say, yes, people tell me all the time, like, hey man, you need, like, maybe not do this, maybe not try this. And you know what I think the end all be all to all that is if it's good, you can do it. Like, and I'm not saying this is good, it will be determined, like, but if you can really do it, if you can meet the challenge with love, then you get, like, whatever story is taking hold of you, go for it, you know, go take a swing at it.
Interesting. Well, I always think the best books are the ones you can't describe in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Because if it's that easy to describe, it's probably kind of simple.
Yeah.
So that's why I do like the way you write. I like the way you get into characters. I think there's an honesty to it. And yeah, people are constantly experiencing all different sorts of things at the same time in life. And even though they're super different, the feelings are not.
Yeah.
And I like that there's crime involved, like there's crime, and it's all going on at the same time, but that's life. And I think that if you're a good writer, you understand that it's more about, like, the individual story that's happening at the same time. And that's why I like your writing so much. So maybe because you're I don't want to put you on the spot, because I should have asked you this before, but because you have such a different voice, do you want to maybe read a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think people should hear how you write.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think, you know, especially to understand the voice that you write in, and that, you know, it's different and unique. So if you
Yes.
don't mind. All right. There you go.
Okay, so this is the opening of chapter 3, so it's weird. You're supposed to start at the beginning of a book, but I've just found this works. So it's just a page here. Chapter 3, and this is from Luke Jackson. He is the plant manager at Detmer Foods, not Tyson. What Luke Jackson enjoyed most about his plant, any plant really, was how it worked. Everything had a purpose. Everything followed the same schedule, which was exactly what Luke would tell the government inspectors as soon as they arrived. The schedule was simple. It went like this. After 45 days, broiler chickens are of proper weight and ready for harvest. They arrive at the plant in modular bins specifically designed for maximum comfort and proper ventilation. From there, workers trained in humane handling carefully suspend the birds by their feet, strapping them into a moving line. Next, the chickens enter a dim-lit room where they are subdued with rub bars, which provide a relaxing sensation and encourage neck extension. Luke always made sure the inspectors noticed how the broilers closed their eyes when the bars touched their chests. The birds' necks are cut a few moments later. Then they're run through a scalding bath designed to loosen the feathers, and finally, the broilers are eviscerated, the part where a machine guts the chickens and cuts off their feet. Luke's plant processed 175 broiler chickens every minute, a rate not allowed in most states, not even some counties in Arkansas, and Luke was damn proud of that, especially when things ran on time. Now, I read that to set this up, and if you're ready to go eat some fried chicken, chapter 1 starts with Luke's wife, Mimi Jackson. So here's chapter 1. Despite all that Mimi Jackson knew, the chicken fajitas still looked good. Smelled good, too. She watched the dark-haired waiter balance 3 plates on one arm as he hustled past her table and the 5 other women she'd invited to La Huerta. They were wives of Detmer Foods plant managers. They played bunco and were members of local junior league chapters. And just recently, they'd all performed a miracle. So that's the opening chapter. Anybody want to guess what the miracle they'd all performed was?
I read it.
Right, minutes, right?
I don't want to